Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like SoMe.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices. bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees. Better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, And we're live. Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with my bro, Daniel Ameli he wrote 13 Common Misconceptions about Bitcoin, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I got the pleasure of hanging out with Daniel in Miami during Blockchain Week. I think the memory I'm going to take home forever, Daniel, is seeing you lackadaisically chilling in the mansion pool on that giant pink flamingo. Good times. Good times.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think that came out even better than using Elon Musk's boring companies and not a flamethrower.
Yeah, dude, I literally had to leave right before that. I waited to the last minute to leave to go to the airport, and I was this close to missing my flight. I get on the airplane, and as it's taking off, I see everybody playing with a freaking flamethrower. I think it was a godsend that I wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah, I know. You know how that could go wrong. But yeah, no, I definitely appreciate that. People like Jeremy are giving back to the crypto community this way.
Yeah,
You know,
Jeremy, shout out to Jeremy Gardner. Really appreciate him opening his house up to all of us and letting us basically like mi casa su casa the mansion. Why don't you do me a favor, bro? Introduce yourself. Let people know like who Daniel is. How did you get into crypto, and how did you end up coming up with this amazing Medium article for the 13 common misconceptions about Bitcoin?
oh, thanks. Yeah. So I heard about Bitcoin in 2010 on a tech blog, and I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. A lot of people tried to make digital money before, and they never quite figured it out, and this was the one that did. So I'd worked in a variety of fields, including commodities trading, as well as in the tech space. So it was a lot easier for me to understand what this was. I'd already used my computer for a SETI at home, so my computer was churning away 100% CPU all night trying to find aliens.
That's
And
awesome.
I didn't find
Mining
it.
for
Yeah,
aliens. That is different.
yeah. Well, I like this idea, right? I like the idea of the computer should be working for you. You paid
Hmm.
for it; it should be doing something, right? Humans need to sleep; machines don't. Machines can make our lives better. And I never found any aliens. I did find some Bitcoin. So then, I started, digging into this further. And then when I started meeting people in the Bitcoin community in real life, was when it really clicked for me. It's like this is going to change the world. And then went from thinking, is this going to succeed, to what will the success of this look like? In what way is this going to work, right? And I hope it does come to the place where we're banking the unbanked, as opposed to just being a toy for speculators and high net worth individuals. So in the last few years, I've been working on educating and teaching people, because I've spent so much time learning myself, and now I feel like there's this information gap, right? People have heard of Bitcoin, but they don't actually know what it is.
They think they
So
know what it is, which is more dangerous than not knowing what it is, in my opinion, anyway.
right, yeah, people can start from less than zero because they've read some, fear mongering article, or they heard
Hmm.
a rumor from their cousin, or something, and that's it. So that was part of why I wrote this article, because I kept saying the same, couple of things over and over, and then I realized, what, let me just put, I think, some of the most common ones together, so that I can just point people to that. And then somebody says something online, say, oh well, Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, and then I just send them a link and say, oh, that's myth number seven.
Yeah. So we're gonna go over these, man, because I feel like a lot of people. may not want to read, and this could be a good outlet for them to kind of get the same information in an audible format. And then we can riff on these topics because a lot of these are things that I've actually had to argue with like Uber drivers or like my maybe my barista or my server at a restaurant about like things when I try to offer Bitcoin as a tip. Their common misconception of it is such a turnoff, and it's actually a poor conversation starter to try to educate somebody, be like, well, you're wrong and here's why. And it's a different way
Yeah.
of digesting information when they're taking it from somebody who's trying to, I guess, comes off kind of pompous, like, no, you're wrong, let me tell you why. And it's
Yeah,
so
I mean, yeah, for years I tried to give away Bitcoin. I know it became like a Twitter scam or, a joke or whatever, but I tried and a lot of people were like, no, it's too risky.
yeah. And
I'm like, but I'm offering it to you for free. There's no
yeah,
risk here.
I get the same offers from or the same pushback from people I'm offering. Like again, the bartender, I'll be like, "Yo, I'll give you a $10 tip in Bitcoin if you want to download like a Monarch wallet." And they're like, I mean, it's not really worth." I'm like, and then I try to like, I know that it's not the best to be like the Lambo Land mentality, but I try to point them at like, well, if you got this $10 in 2010 and you would have sat on it for the past 10 years, it would be a little bit more. And it could do the same thing 10 years from today,
Yeah.
you know. So just $10 may not be worth downloading a Bitcoin wallet, but today it may not, but in the future it will be.
In 2017, I got texts and emails from people saying, "Oh, hey, didn't you give me, whatever Bitcoin? I think it's worth like, $800 now." I'm like, "Okay,
Oh.
that's great." And then they're like, "Okay, so where is it?" I'm like, "You're asking me?" Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know those feelings.
so I so I
Actually.
stopped. So I stopped doing that because I'm like, all right, I guess this is not the right way to promote the growth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna work on the understanding first, and then we'll go from there. Don't give people it, before they, see what it is and how it
Yeah,
works.
it becomes a financial burden, you know, and
Yeah.
it could be a bad way to lead people into it, where they feel like, you know, oh, Daniel or Ken gave me some Bitcoin years ago, it should be worth $800 today, and now I can't get to it. Oh, this stuff sucks. I'm never gonna put my own money into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Or yeah, people are anchoring to like a previous lower price or something, and
yeah, yeah.
it would.
Emotionally anchoring, that can be dangerous too, and I've seen it happen to people in this space that spectate too long. They're like, oh, I've been looking into it all year. I'm like, did you ever get any? And like, no, I'm waiting for it to come back down to the price I originally saw it at when I first started researching it.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so that's why I put this article, and there's like a bonus misconception. I mean, which is just that Bitcoin is not a physical metal coin. It's not like a gold coin. You bite it to see if it's real.
Yeah, New York
Bitcoin.
found out about that the wrong way, I think. I read an article about 2 or 3 years ago now. Some guy was out there selling those, memorabilia Bitcoin in New York for
Yeah.
actual money, and that was an interesting scam to see actually succeed, and especially in an environment like New York City. But that is an extraordinary misconception that people, think that it's actually a coin because of the word coin in it.
Yeah. And again, if they think it's a physical coin, I can understand why they would be a little bit concerned about, the price going to $10,000.
Well, now there
Uh,
are physical coins, right? I mean, there's the Cassatius coins or Satoris, and I mean, I hung out with Nick Spanos in Miami, and he actually has like a whole bag full of physical Bitcoin that he hides his, private keys behind those protective stickers.
yeah, they're super cool, but unfortunately, a sticker is not, really high security. And if you have something like that where someone else set it up for you, then you can't know for sure if they didn't keep a copy of the private key themselves.
Exactly. You
And
could do
that's
it
kind of
yourself,
scary when
but
you're talking about a lot of money.
yeah, you can do it yourself, but even a printer
Yeah.
that printed it out's going to remember something along the lines.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be common for people to try to get into like copier machines in office buildings, because it would automatically keep a record of everything photocopied on it for a period of time.
Yeah, I made a paper wallet video about 4 years ago now on how to make a Bitcoin paper wallet, and I got a lot of good approval from it because no other video at the time was recommending people wipe their printer's memory or even showing
Mhm.
people how to do it. And I made it like the key point of my videos. Like, if you're gonna make a paper wallet, you better erase that printer's memory because I think 5 years from now, people are going to be on, recycling sites trying to buy up printers and probably even specifically hunting, like, oh, where did, oh, this company's selling their old printers? Let me buy them.
Exactly. Yeah. And the same thing with old hard drives, So people point out, hey, look on eBay. Someone's like,
Oh,
oh yeah, I'm selling a hard drive from certain
yep.
years and whatever, and it says, whatever, 50 BTC on it, in a Sharpie.
Yeah, I've done that
What can
with
happen?
Android phones on eBay, restoring factory reset Android devices.
Hmm.
I worked with a project called Root Junkie, and at the time we were buying these phones on Amazon and eBay, and basically getting them back to the point right before you factory reset it with your phone numbers, your contacts, everything in the phone the way it was right before you reset it. And then we contact people and basically be like, here, you want your phone back. Don't ever do this again.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate that there's some, white hat hackers in the space. There was a white hat hacker, who found a flaw with blockchain.info's web wallet, a number of years back, and then he took out 400 bitcoins of other people's money and then gave it all back. Or
Respect.
they'd fix that. But yeah, it's just it's great that we have some of those because there's already plenty of people who are happy to try to take money for themselves and disappear.
Well, let's jump into these common misconceptions with number one being, and I think this is perfect. Number one is Bitcoin is fiat. So a lot of people come to you with that, perspective that Bitcoin is fiat.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, right, they don't have a background in economics, so they might think Fiat is an Italian car. But
They really hate us, by the way.
but
They're so over fucking crypto Twitter.
I know, it's offended them so many times.
They'll
But
never
yeah,
sell for Bitcoin. That's our fault.
exactly, exactly. They're like, yeah, I converted my Bitcoin to Fiat, and yeah, exactly.
That's
So
probably the best way to convert Bitcoin to fiat is to buy a fiat with Bitcoin. Stop, Dan. That's hilarious.
so fiat money has a specific meaning, right? It means that the government of a certain area is saying this is what you're going to use, and fiat comes from Latin meaning government decree, right? So the government is saying, look, you're going to use this paper money, that will be the currency, this is how much we're saying it's worth, and it's not necessarily redeemable for anything else, right? It doesn't have value in itself, and you can't exchange it for something else at a fixed rate. And fiat money has its upsides, right? Plenty of countries are working on fiat money now, and their government and economy will still run. It's more noticeable when it's going wrong, like when you have the Zimbabwe note, and when they just kept adding on zeros to it, right? And I carry that around just to remind people, that that's 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 $100 trillion exactly. Same thing with the Bolivar and so on, where the government was not being responsible with the money and it lost its value. But Bitcoin is not fiat because no government is saying, "Oh, you have to use this." It's something that's valuable in itself, and people are choosing to use it.
Yep, and I think that's probably what maybe confuses people from at first from even thinking of it as anything different, or how is it doing anything different than the cash in my pocket. How is it better or worse? If they look at it at a similar light. They don't understand. They have no clue how many $20 bills are in circulating supply, so they don't know how many 20s they have out of total to really know what they're worth. But they're okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, people don't really think about money in general. Like there's the joke, the two fish are passing each other, and one says the other, "How's the water?" and the other one says, "What's water?" That people are just they're spending so much of their waking hours just trying to get little green pieces of paper, and they don't know where these came from, how many there are, what the Latin inscriptions mean, what the symbols mean, the name of the person who signed what what it's even made out of, what this that kind of thing, right?
Well, I mean, you
Whether
could write a whole book on the common
magnetic traces.
misconceptions of fiat. How many people think that cash or fiat is backed by gold still, and then they argue that which is number two on here, is
Right.
the Bitcoin isn't backed by anything but fiat's backed by gold.
Exactly. If you talk to people, who grew up in the U.S., particularly like before the 1970s, a lot of them really do think that they can go, to Fort Knox, and just be like, "Wow, here's some my pieces of paper, and give me a fixed amount of gold for it." And that is not how it works. The U.S. definitively left the gold standard in 1971, so it's been a very long time. People should update their information. Yeah, if you want to buy gold with your dollars, it's at whatever the current exchange rate is. There isn't a big vault of money with your name on it. So what backs Bitcoin? What, or I should say, like, what backs the dollar? But we'll get
Well,
there
yeah.
another
Well,
time.
the thing is, it is technically true. Bitcoin isn't backed by anything because there isn't someone saying like, okay, here's some gold, and then you can exchange your Bitcoin for it at a fixed rate, or anything else really, right? So, um, however, it's misleading because Bitcoin doesn't need to be backed by something. You only would need to back something if it's not valuable in itself. Since Bitcoin is valuable in itself, it there's no reason for it to be backed. Just like gold isn't backed by anything, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
gold's backed by gold, or I guess you say, which the argument would be Bitcoin and gold are backed by their work, their proof of work, the cost that it would be to produce that asset.
Well, you have to be careful with that because a lot of things cost effort to produce, but they're not necessarily valuable, right? So if you dig a bunch of holes in the middle of a soccer field, right, that costs energy, that costs time, that could cost money if you're paying someone to do it. It's not adding value. You can't then just sell those holes to somebody if you didn't increase value.
Unless it turns into a cemetery.
Yeah, exactly. I met an artist once who was finding driftwood, would walk along the beach, find driftwood, and then paint the driftwood in different bright colors, and then sell that. And I pointed out that the driftwood would actually sell more unpainted, which is not what artists want to hear because they want to think that they're creating value, not destroying it. But yeah, just because you're expending energy doesn't mean you're creating value. But if you allow people to just create an arbitrary amount of something without any expenditure, then they could certainly dilute all the value away, right?
I,
People don't use like water or sand for money for a reason.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You mentioned the driftwood and artist. I've actually had similar conversations with like Bitcoin artists, and I'm like, you're putting crypto in your art and backing it by this crypto asset like Bitcoin, and basically giving me the choice: do I destroy the art to get to the private key of the Bitcoin, or do I keep the art because it's more valuable than the Bitcoin that it was painted on? And I mean, that's a
Yeah.
dangerous place to be putting a lot of your work as an artist goes.
Yeah, I know. It's always interesting even to see like traditional money in artwork or something, or
Oh,
like
true.
are people going to start, trying to peel those $100 bills out of it, or melt down the gold, or that kind of
I'm
thing.
always waiting for Banksy to come out with like dollar bills that Banksy has written on because, intrinsically that dollar would be worth thousands of those same dollars just because Banksy drew a cartoon on it.
Absolutely. I mean, people start jackhammering his art right out of the walls he puts it into. It's amazing to see that. And I always thought that's one of the neat things about Bitcoin that someone like Banksy can put a QR code and people can donate, and Banksy can still maintain some degree of privacy,
Yeah, Banksy's
but he doesn't need it.
a small hero to the art industry that people don't, at least the mainstream don't recognize as much. I mean, dude, when he shredded that multi-million-dollar painting, bro, I was just like, respect. Like, I like got up on my stage, like started jumping. I'm like, that is awesome. And I see people do stuff like that in crypto with like, color coins, burning Bitcoin, to create these color coins. It was very
Hmm.
similar.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting applications of burning Bitcoins that people haven't discussed, like a way of, establishing some weight to an identity, or, proving commitment to something. Still waiting for that to become more of a thing. There have been cases like when Counterparty launched, people
Yep.
burned about 2,000 Bitcoins to get it. All right. So anyway, and moving on here. Yeah. So three, right? Bitcoin has no
Yes.
intrinsic value, is worthless, right? And
Yeah, I mean that's what it is, guys. It's worth it.
yeah, so I know some Bitcoin advocates who would, their response to this is nothing has value, everything is subjective, whatever, everything is worthless. Okay, I don't really like that line of argument. I would say that the intrinsic value of Bitcoin is the ability to write to the Bitcoin blockchain. So if you have Bitcoin, you can write to the Bitcoin blockchain. If you don't have Bitcoin, you can't. And it's useful to be able to write to this because this is one of the most secure, verifiable, globally accessible ledgers, right? This is there's a lot of blockchains right now, but Bitcoin is the one that I'm absolutely positive will still be available and secure in 10 years, right? Other ones maybe. So uh, data storage we know is worth money, but this specific kind of data storage is far more valuable than Dropbox.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me like, what does Bitcoin do that makes it have value, or why does it have value because of what it does?
People, I think one of the questions I get the most from people is like, where does the money come from? Like, who does establishes the value? If I think people think like money just magically gets attached to some things. Like you just type it in a price gun and slap a sticker on it, and now Bitcoin's automatically worth 10 grand. I don't think they know how like supply and demand and market works.
Yeah, well, different kinds of money have arisen in different ways and different forms. I mean, I always tell people to go read Nick Szabo's, shelling out article, which is, a great one about, the history of some different monies. But there's some people who think, oh, you have to start with a store of value and then become means of exchange, or you can't. Well, actually, you could, money can arise from different forms, right? So, and serves different purposes. So I wouldn't, say it has to be a certain way.
And that
Um,
that would lead us to Bitcoin being too expensive. Who establishes the value? Who's saying, or how do you say that this is too
yeah.
expensive when the market has clearly established its value?
Right. Right now, Bitcoin is expensive relative to a cup of coffee, but it's cheap relative to a house. So, uh, what people I think are missing with this one is that Bitcoins are actually not the real units. The actual units are the Satoshis, right? Each Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. And Satoshis right now are actually quite cheap, right? They're less than a penny. So, not a bad idea, right? What if someone offers you a penny or a Satoshi? I'm going to take the Satoshi, even though that means that at penny Satoshi parity, right, Bitcoin would be $1 million.
And you have to deal with dust at some point too. There's that whole aspect of that penny may take a while to earn or gain enough value to be able to be moved, as opposed to the copper or not even zinc penny now in your pocket.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that yeah, the pennies used to be copper, and then they switched to mostly zinc with a copper coating. And even then, when metal prices were going up, people realized, oh wait a minute, these are actually worth more melted down than
Mm-hmm.
as the money form.
The silver
Um,
dollar, the $half, I think, got the biggest pump and dump from the silver bugs. They went around and got these 50-cent pieces from the bank, melted them down, and sold them back for like 15, $20.
Amazing. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So Bitcoin isn't too expensive because people don't actually need one Bitcoin for anything in particular. Just like people don't need one bar of gold, right? You see it in movies, but how many times are people like, yeah, I'm gonna go buy a 400-ounce good delivery bar of gold, just to have one. That
The only
kind of thing.
time I've
I think
ever
it'll be
felt a
cool.
whole bar of gold in my hand was like one
Yeah.
of those little boxes you can put your arm into and try to like sneak the gold out, but it's impossible because it's too heavy and nobody's fingers are that strong or that skinny to fit it through. But like I got to feel it, and it actually, because of seeing it in movies my whole life, and it
Yeah.
was a weird like fourth wall break moment for me, like physically, to actually put that perspective of my mind to like seeing it being lifted. It looks so light in movies.
Yeah,
I
it's so
don't
much
get
heavier
it.
than you realize. People don't realize, like, if you mix in some lead into your gold, it makes it lighter.
Right, that's
You think, oh,
crazy.
it's only this big. It won't be. Oh my God, so
Yeah,
heavy.
it is ridiculously heavy, and I want to dive into this because I think this is an interesting number five common misconception. But I think this comes from like legacy people, like the current like legacy investors or people that may be more aware of currency and money and investing, because
Hmm.
they come into this with the perspective that anyone can just make more bitcoins, like creating more bitcoins. Like when Bitcoin Cash forked, a lot of traditional investors thought that was just like a dividend or just like splitting a stock, and they
Yeah.
looked at it as just being able to print fiat. Really,
Yeah. So you can't just make more, right? When you have a split like that, anybody who's holding their own private keys now has everything that's there. So they're not being diluted in any way, right? So you have if you had bitcoins, in before August 1st, 2017, you end up with Bitcoin Cash. So, and then of course you can decide what you want to do. And of course, I've met long-term holders who are just like, no, I'm just keeping everything. That's it. I already mentally committed to this. So, I'm not going to be making decisions about the forks. And I get that. And there's people who, they prefer one thing over the other. And I don't want to get sidetracked into that conversation. But yeah, you're not actually creating more. You're not diluting the holders, right? Just like if when you talk about going from bitcoins to satoshis, right, or you talk about like potentially splitting satoshis into pieces in the future, you're not actually diluting anybody. So even if they end up with the more units, at a lesser value, it all equals out. And yeah, there's no shortcut to just make more Bitcoins. You have to go through the mining process if you want to make them. You can always just make your own new coin up, like plenty of people have done, starting from, with Litecoin being the first, notable one, and other ones, Namecoin and so on back in the day. But it's just like kind of making your own website, I could look at Facebook and be like, oh, Facebook is worth a lot of money. I'm going to make my own website that'll be kind of like that. Well, yeah, but the value is not in the website. The value is not that the website is so particularly cool. It's that there's 2 billion people using it.
Yeah, I think that the 21 million cap may confuse a lot of traditional investors, and I think they actually want that ability that anybody can make more bitcoins because of that limit. Sometimes I have conversation where people would like that because they worry about the wealth distribution in Bitcoin. Like a lot of Bitcoiners worry about the uneven distribution in fiat, but fiaters worry about the same thing in crypto, that they're going to end up being minnows in the crypto world when they're whales in the fiat world.
I get that. I mean, it's particularly a problem with like a proof of stake coin where you can have a situation where, someone has too large a stake because then it's no longer decentralized. But yeah, if the distribution is too skewed, then it makes it harder for other people to feel like it's fair, to want to get in. It also means that there's more risk to the price having a huge move at some point in the future. Even if you're at very high prices, there's still, someone is like, oh yeah, don't I have this many, Bitcoin lying around, and they do something impulsive, like the famous bear whale incident from 2014, where someone, I think, what was it, dumped like 30,000 Bitcoins onto the market in a really irresponsible way. You don't, you don't want to see that kind of thing. So hopefully, people have an extreme holdings will slowly diversify.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
they're definitely encouraged to because of that. What you mentioned, they don't want to dump their holdings as they get rid of them. They don't want to cause a dip as they're actually trying to get out of the market, and that's a lot of whales are stuck with the burden of hodling because of that. If they ended up moving a large amount, it could actually make the amount of money they profited actually balance out where the Bitcoin that they have left loses a little bit of value, but they ended up making some of it in cash. So, and
yeah, and
that's where I come to the next topic here, where Bitcoin is in a bubble. I was on RTTV twice. I don't know why they had me come back the second time, but they did. They're really weird. But I got to talk about the Bitcoin bubble on RTTV. It's got like a fucking million views. Really cool interview. They totally sandbagged me, but that's besides the point. And that's sort of my argument for the Bitcoin bubble was, well, it's going to be really hard for a lot of these, whales that dump on the market. They're kind of encouraged to not do that. And I feel like now we can touch on like that Bitcoin bubble common misconception where like, Bitcoin's just going to crash. It's inevitable.
yeah, well, I'd say about Bitcoin is a bubble. No, Bitcoin isn't a bubble, but it's had several bubbles, right? There's 2011 bubble, 2013 bubble, 2017 bubble. I don't doubt that there there will be more. Unfortunately, with any real asset that people can buy or sell easily, when the price goes up a little bit for whatever reasons, then it attracts some people who only buy because the price is going up, and then those people will get out as soon as it stops going up. So, even for whatever the real value of Bitcoin is, then the price can get higher than that. And when that creates this feedback loop, and when it feeds on itself, then the price can get much higher than the current value. And you end up with a bubble, and then you end up with a crash. Bitcoin has had several significant crashes. The 2011 crash was 95%, which is
Yeah.
pretty devastating. And I'd say it's comparable to if you bought Amazon at the peak in the dot-com bubble in 2000. It actually went down 95% from there, right? And then it eventually made those gains back and then went up another 20x from there. But how many people would have been holding that the whole time, besides Jeff Bezos,
Well, a
right?
lot of people have, used the time that they've had now to reflect back on that opportunity and saw that that was a mainstream manipulated situation where, the mainstream was telling everybody to dump their internet stocks, that the internet was just a fad and that the internet investments were, too risky for their potential rewards. And the next thing you know, people started panic selling because of this, mainstream media perpetuation of the assets that were these, stocks for Amazon and things like that. And next thing you know, that the mainstream was buying everything that the people were selling. So
Yeah, and
It's what's
it's a
happening
great
now.
case study. Yeah, like, is the internet transformative? Yes. Does that mean every single company that's in the internet space is going to do well or continue to exist? No, it doesn't.
MySpace.
Yeah, exactly. You got to figure out, what are the companies that are going to try to succeed, or likely to succeed, and which ones are, just have a stupid idea, or just, maybe just too early.
Yep.
Right? The idea of delivering groceries, via orders on the internet was mocked, but there's nothing wrong with that idea. It just was 20 years early.
Yeah, Amazon just hit me with an email the other day that said they had same day food delivery. Like same day food delivery. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm a hermit for life now. I have no reason to leave the house ever again.
Yeah, just wait till the drones get here.
Do you know what though? I feel like that's gonna be a user issue, right? Like I love the concept of Amazon with the drone delivery, except I already have issues with my neighbors stealing my shit as it is. I can't wait for the 12-year-old kid down the street to have a net just waiting to snipe a drone out of the sky with my package, because it'll happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'll just be running around with butterfly nets trying to get themselves gifts.
Yeah, it looked like SpongeBob trying to go jellyfish hunting, but for drones. And that's exactly why I'm like, I think that bad people are actually what hold a lot of good technology back from being implemented. Much like, the self-driving cars, bad actors hacking them are pretty much why we're not seeing a mainstream adoption of them at this moment, because the risk reward is pretty scary to see somebody can just like, lock you out of your own car because they hacked it, or make it so the car takes you to a location you didn't ask it to take you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, about prices going up, people think, oh, well, if something goes up, it has to go down. Well, it depends why it went up, right? If it went up because it's a bubble, then yeah, it's going to come back down. But if it went up because people were initially underpricing it, where there just wasn't that much demand for it at that time, and then it goes up, then it might be just coming closer to where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Right? People think of, oh, you throw a baseball up and then it eventually has to come back down. You throw it up harder, it has to come back down. So that's just an inherent property of reality. That's what they assume by induction, and they don't realize, like, well, if you throw a baseball up hard enough, it actually doesn't come back down,
Right,
or it
exactly.
comes back down but on the moon. Right?
Yeah, well, that's where I think calling this a bubble isn't a fair vernacular. I believe I like to say it's in a wave right now. We're in a wave. It crashes. The current keeps drifting, and then we get another wave after wave. And just like the current in the ocean, if you get big enough waves, they crash hard enough, you get another bigger wave that crashes harder, that causes another bigger wave, and it's
Yeah. Yeah. In December 2017, John McAfee tweeted, "Bubbles are mathematically impossible in this new paradigm." Uh, but no, they are possible. But I try to think of them as little previews of the future. So sometimes I'll take my own price charts and I'll just chop off the bubbles. I'll just draw a straight line, from the start to the end of the bubble, and it looks a lot nicer.
I've seen some good TA posted recently of like the full Bitcoin chart, and it has a very obvious curvature to its lower lows and higher highs that you can sort of follow. And I
Yeah.
mean, just coming around the halvening where we're at now, looking back at 4 years, you can see where we're going. You can sort of project where this is going with the adoption rate and the usability of it. And I think that this leads to the next common misconception, number 7 here, where Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme. And I am actually on the fence that yes and no. I'm in that gray area that yes it is and no it isn't.
Well, yeah. So it isn't these things because they do have specific definitions, right? Ponzi scheme is where you have a con artist paying prior investors with money from new investors, and they're promising specific and usually very, very high returns. So Bitcoin is not that. There's no one saying, "Oh yeah, put your money in here, then we'll give it to these investors, then we'll do this, and you make 10% a week." There are people running around, trying to run Ponzi's using Bitcoin, though, where they'll say, "Oh yeah, deposit your Bitcoins and we'll give you such and such a return." And if you actually run the numbers, you realize, those returns are ridiculous. They're just trying to steal money by, leaning on people's greed. I had a scammer try to tell me that if I sent him Bitcoin, he could give me 10% daily returns. So I said, okay, how about this? I will send you one Satoshi, and then a little bit a year from now, you send me back 22 million Bitcoins. How does that sound?
Wow.
because that's 10% compounding returns for 371 days does that.
Yeah, BitConnect.
Exactly. So it's like, it can go for a while, specifically if the returns aren't promised that are too high and people join in or whatever. But yeah, and Bitcoin's a very powerful tool, and unfortunately that makes it easier for the scammers to get in, right?
I think people, their perspective of it, and that's why I'm on the yes and no, it's not that gray area. Is like, well, I mean, you're telling me to buy Bitcoin because you bought into it years ago, and if I buy some and take it out of circulation, it's obviously going to increase your, previous investment. And if I get somebody to do the same thing, and they get somebody to do the same thing, where it does start to get that familiarity that people could correlate to, like the pyramid or Ponzi scheme mentality.
Right. And any time where you have something where there's too much speculative demand relative to the usage, you end up with that something that can behave a little bit like a Ponzi, even if it isn't.
Especially when the use case right now is speculation, right?
For a lot of people, I know you actually you actually use it. I try to when I can, but I get it. But you can have the same thing where someone buys a vacation house on an island or something, and then they start telling everybody, "Oh my God, you got to buy a vacation house on this island. It's so great." And maybe part of it is that they're excited about it, and part of it is that if everybody starts doing that, then their house will be worth a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, and a pyramid scheme is something specific, right? You have a hierarchy, and people are making scheduled payments up the hierarchy. So Bitcoin is not that.
Right, and I mean, you could hop in and be any role or perform any position in the economy. You could be a miner, you could run the node, you could do X, Y, and Z. And I mean, at this point, you could even have your own decentralized exchange on your website. You could
Exactly.
any role you can
People
play.
can start contributing to the code or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
People even, and there's people like that are already very rich in the traditional world. They can come in and buy huge amounts of Bitcoin. Any of these billionaires can just be like, yeah, I'm going to buy 10,000 Bitcoin, whatever.
So what do you say when those, billionaires come into the room and go, well, Bitcoin's a scam, which is number 8 on the common misconceptions list. But I think that is unfortunately mainstream propaganda being perpetuated onto an industry where they try to demonize the individuals, like, with Silk Road and Ross, where they're like, Bitcoin's a scam, it's for drugs. And I'm like, you're just pointing at one very, very, very small use.
Yeah, well, that's a later one, but Bitcoin's not a scam. It's an open source project for building money that anybody can participate in. So there's no marketing department. There's no secretive and bizarre leader. You can look at the transactions, you can look at the code, you can look at the history of it, and then you can decide whether you want to participate or not. Of course, there individuals who are excited about it might say, oh yeah, this is definitely going to do this, or it's going to do that, or it's whatever, or they'll say ridiculous things like payments are fast, free, and anonymous, which is not really
that
true.
was my least favorite part of getting into Bitcoin, was realizing all of that was a fucking lie.
Yeah, or that people are guaranteed to make money. And I mean, the reality is, right? When does the average person who doesn't follow this hear about Bitcoin? They hear about it at all-time highs, right? And that's not a good time to get in.
Yeah, we saw that happen. I mean, Coinbase was bragging it, which I really thought was just throwing fuel on the fire that wasn't helping much. But Coinbase is like, we had 300,000 people download our app this month. And I'm like, okay, I might put in a sell order around now. I mean, that's just dangerous.
And mainstream mainstream publications like the New York Times, if you look at what they wrote in December 2017, they wrote an article, everyone's getting rich from Bitcoin. And then, what are they writing when the price is, down 80%? Oh, yeah, these people lost all their money in Bitcoin. And it's just like, these articles actually make it worse, because the timing, because the tone, you're encouraging people to buy when it's high and sell when it's low. And they already have a tendency to do that if, they're busy with their jobs as, doctors or construction workers. They can't follow this,
Yeah, that's a first world report. They don't highlight the fact that Venezuela's utilizing this. No matter which direction their price is going, it's being utilized.
Exactly. For a lot of the use cases, the price doesn't even matter. Someone's just trying to buy medicine. Or
I think people forget that too. That the price does not matter. If Bitcoin went to $1, I'd still use it because it would still work. As long as as long as it still works, I could care less what the price is because I just need it to work.
Exactly. So then, of course, there's a question, right? Is Bitcoin dead? Is it broken? Is it over? It's not, it's still generating blocks. People are still using it. And it's kind of funny if you look at, 99bitcoins.com, Bitcoin obituaries, you can see I think it's maybe closing in a 400 or something articles starting from like 2010, 2011, where, Wired's like, oh, Bitcoin's over. Everybody go home. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it died. I think 4 times the last bear
Yeah.
market. This
Yeah.
this current bear market died a couple times. Just it was weird to see that it comes back to life over a couple percent, but then it dips a little bit and it's dead all of a
I
sudden.
know China has apparently banned it 50 times. The
Oh,
CEO
that
of
was a good
Bitcoin has
one.
died
Yes.
repeatedly. I don't understand how, someone could write an article about the CEO of Bitcoin dying, but, they have.
Oh,
So,
Craig Wright's in fine health.
no, no comment. I do not wish to be
That
sued.
is see, now you have a whole new common misconceptions article you can run off of the common misconceptions that have come out of people that are already in this space that have
Yeah.
common misconceptions of themselves in it. It's an interesting place to be.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I wrote 13, but I can write 30 more. There's
Exactly.
no shortage here. It's just these are the ones that just kept coming up and were really, really bugging me. Yeah. So 10 is Bitcoin isn't used for anything.
Nothing, not at all. I haven't used it to pay for my Zoom service, my PlayStation
Hmm.
Live account, my flight to Miami, all of that. I didn't use Bitcoin for.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
no,
did.
it's
I
great.
used
You
it for
want to
everything.
exactly. You want to get a VPN for 24 hours. Actually, Bitcoin is a logical way to do that.
Actually, it's the
Connect it.
most logical way. Why are people
Yeah,
using credit cards for
you're gonna put
VPNs?
you put your name, address, and credit card to try to get some anonymity. Okay, good
Yeah,
luck
and
with
then you
that.
have your government submit a subpoena to the provider of the VPN who's been cataloging all your data because they need to in case they get that subpoena. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
scary line to walk on when people do that to themselves.
yeah. So people right now are using it. It's just that only the most ridiculous advocates of it are the ones telling everybody. But just some guy who's just found a way to use it in South America in a way that helps his life. He's not necessarily going on social media or mainstream media to start telling everybody. Especially if the local government doesn't appreciate what he's doing. But I like to give the example of, right, just imagine a self-driving car, hits a traffic jam and there's a drone overhead, and the self-driving car wants to pay a little bit to try to, get some video footage from the drone to see, whether it should wait out the delay or try to find another route. And how do people think, the self-driving vehicle is going to pay, the drone, right? With cash, credit
Yeah,
card,
it's gonna
paper
PayPal.
checks?
PayPal it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly. They're just gonna, both of them are just gonna go over to the local bank branch and say, "Hello, I would like to open it." No, they can just pay with Bitcoin. That's what's so freaking beautiful.
That's what I
Makes
think
sense.
people don't realize is machines can now have their own bank accounts. Machines can be their own individuals. Like I speculated with somebody about like the future of vending machines with smart contracts. You'll never see a human touch it unless they're filling it, right? Like somebody
Yeah.
will set the vending machine up, but then the vending machine's going to submit a smart contract proposal to get more Dorito chips put in F7 because it ran out, and then you have your people that are filling it probably
Yeah.
going to have to put into escrow the amount of money that in total is in that vending machine so they can open it. So in case they steal everything out of the vending machine, that money is already there. They paid for everything in advance. Like there's
Yeah.
so much that can be done with this.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see that. So of course, after saying Bitcoin isn't used for anything, then they'll say Bitcoin is only used for bad things.
Which I actually have had the hardest time. Like when I first got into Bitcoin, like 2016, I heard
Yeah.
about it for Silk Road drugs and all this, and it's 2020 and I've yet to find one drug dealer that will let me buy drugs with Bitcoin from them. They all prefer cash only.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll even take other drugs in barter for the drugs that I want, but I can't use Bitcoin. It's pretty damn difficult.
Yeah. So look, what I say to that is, Bitcoin is a tool, right? Just like cars or hammers or, planes or whatever. You can use it for good things. You can use it for bad things, right? People will, do that. It's general purpose. You can't just make a useful tool that can be only used for good things. It's, that has not been invented yet. But, the media likes the exciting story of, some whatever Silk Road kind of thing. It just makes for interesting reporting, and they want to go with that. But they did that. If you look at like early reporting about the internet, same kind of thing. Oh, it's a scary place filled with all these scary people. What's also funny is that when people say like, oh, well, Bitcoin's only used for gambling and blah blah blah, it's like, and then they list several things that are all like $1 trillion industries. Like, all right, that's it's not just that, but even if it was just that, you can't dismiss it.
That's why I really like to shout out Overstock when I can, because I feel like they took a lot of the power away from the mainstream for saying like it's only used for bad things like Silk Road,
Yeah,
and then Patrick Bjorn was like, yeah, okay, we accept Bitcoin for bed sheets. What's up?
exactly. They were very, he was very early to that, and it really helps. Even if that's not like the most super compelling use case for Bitcoin, it's just still nice that at least people, can wrap their heads around. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can just, furnish your house.
And that was a fun fact, by the way, that I talked to Patrick in person before, and I got to ask him. I was like, "So, like, what's the number one thing people buy?" And it's bed sheets. I don't know why. He don't know why, and I would love to
Yeah.
see somebody research into why bed sheets are the number one sold item on Overstock for Bitcoin specifically. But I think that that's just a very interesting item to be the number one sale.
I know. Well, hey, the first Bitcoin transaction was for pizza, and one of the early ones was alpaca socks.
Oh,
Why
that's
alpaca
right.
socks? I don't know. They didn't even say Bitcoin on them.
That is a good point, actually. Yeah, and the pizza was like, what was it, 10,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah, 10,000 Bitcoins for two Papa John's pizzas.
Yeah, Papa John's, and they don't even accept Bitcoin. I've been
No, it
trolling them
wasn't.
for
Yeah,
a
it
little
wasn't even
bit.
direct. It was, it was an indirect
Yeah, it was peer to
payment.
peer.
So,
Basically, I was
yeah,
like, hey, I'll take your 10,000 Bitcoin, and then I'll call Papa John's, give them my credit card info,
yeah,
and tell them where to deliver the pizza.
exactly,
Could you
exactly.
imagine though if that guy got scammed? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to paint that picture, but I'm saying
Right.
like, could you imagine if the first Bitcoin transaction was ha, I'm not calling Papa John's. Why'd you send me the money first, you moron?
Yeah, I know, I know. I, I mean, it's just now it's a credible part of the whole history of Bitcoin. But that's what that's what it takes to get it started. Some people are gonna hold forever, and other people can be like, no, I want to use this. I want to spend.
Talking about getting it started, I think what number 12 common misconception is what stops people from getting started is it's too complicated. People think that they
Yeah.
need to know how to build a car to drive a car, and I think they correlate that to Bitcoin. Like, I don't know how Bitcoin works enough to use it. I'm like, I couldn't fix a transmission to save my life, but I can drive with the best of them.
Exactly. I don't know car repair. There's a whole bunch of things I use every day. I'm not really familiar with how it works. I do in fact teach a course, where we try and explain different things like how hashing works, how mining works, the cryptography and public and private keys and all this stuff. There's all sorts of things you can dig into, but you don't have to know all this stuff, right? Just like as I said, people don't know everything about money, regular money, and they're using it every day. So people just need to know a little bit, right? They need to know that the transactions are irreversible. They need to understand that, you need to have your keys, right? And the price goes up and down. But beyond that, right, they can get started with a little bit and then, they can learn more if they want to. And if they really want to get into the technical details, they can. But some stuff, you'll never have to know.
Right. I think that's where we were talking about this a little bit earlier off air, but like the faucets, I think, were a really amazing concept for showing people how uncomplicated it really is. You get a
Yeah.
little bit for free. Here's the wallet. This is, how it works. Play with it. And I think that that's where I like to sort of give like altcoins, their praises. I love to send Dogecoin to people instead of Bitcoin now. So like they don't feel like, yo, where's that $5 in Bitcoin you sent me? It's worth $800 now, and oh, you lost it. Well, where's that couple cents in Doge? And play around with it, and they don't have that same like, oh, I lost 5 cents in Doge. I'm never gonna get into this Bitcoin stuff.
Exactly. Doge is fun, and that's a way for people to really learn when there's some money on the line, but not very much.
Yeah, it keeps them from getting emotionally attached or correlating it to Bitcoin as much, and I think it's a more pure learning experience. I've replaced my meme coin, like I use Doge a lot, but I've been doing it a lot more with Potcoin, sort of getting my friends and
Mm.
like people in that circle kind of into it through that niche conversation where like we're all smoking, hanging out, and like, hey, you guys heard of Bitcoin? Like, yeah, well, hey, I got this Potcoin thing. Download a wallet, play with it, send it to each other, break it, lose it, figure out where it went wrong, and do it right with Bitcoin when you get around to it.
Nice. And of course, here's the final one, number 13, Bitcoin will be outlawed,
I hope so.
right?
I'll be rich. I would be a billionaire tomorrow. You add risk for. I mean, this is why heroin is valuable. If heroin was legal, it's pretty useless. Nobody. What value does legal heroin have? But you add the risk of selling it, the risk of holding it, the risk of That's why it has value. If Bitcoin was to become outlawed, I'd be way wealthy overnight.
Yeah, only outlaws will have Bitcoin then.
Yeah, and you know how many rich people will be
Good
stuck
bit.
with Bitcoin overnight that are outlaws overnight?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, in some countries, they already have outlawed Bitcoin, and all that means is that they're missing out on companies establishing shop there. They're missing out on all the good uses, but they're still going to have all the black market uses.
Yep.
So it's just they're doing is hurting themselves at this point. Bitcoin. There's no office to call and say, "Hello, we don't want you to operate in our country." It's not Libra. Uh, it's a protocol. It's like if you said, "Oh, we don't want email in our country," you know,
And
we don't.
China has
Yeah,
proven how easy that is to flex if they decide to do that.
yeah. There's countries where they've outlawed the speaking of certain languages, and I mean, they can try, but it's ultimately futile.
Yep.
So yeah, the countries that have banned it, it doesn't really matter. And there are countries that are trying to be explicitly friendly towards Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. I think they're gonna make a lot of money for that.
Do you think we've come too
For sure.
far to go back to that being a potential? Like at this point, I think
Still a risk.
Bitcoin's really.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? The U.S. government outlawed the ownership of gold, right? And gold has been around for thousands of years, fairly well established for people to have some. The U.S. government outlawed alcohol, right? So what the overwhelming majority of this country occasionally consumes alcohol, and just to think that that was actually illegal, it's kind of crazy.
Technically still is. I think they just wrote another amendment to make the other amendment in void, but it technically is still illegal, which technically it's not too. It's a weird situation to be in as a government goes with like laws. But I think we're at a point where I don't think they'd be able to enforce it because this isn't
Yeah.
with prohibition. That was physical. Moonshining was so much harder when you had physical liquor in a trunk. But now we can moonshine Bitcoin, which I've been doing, which I feel like we are in this state of Bitcoin prohibition right now, where I moonshine Bitcoin OTC all the time, and
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible, but it's less likely as as time passes, as you get more institutional interest, as you
mm-hmm.
get things like the exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange, the CME, the Nasdaq wanting to be involved in Bitcoin. That goes a long way towards preventing it from being outlawed.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
even Wyoming went as far as to establish laws to protect people, saying that the Wyoming will never ask for your Bitcoin public address or private address. They'll never ask for certain information. I think with the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and the Bit license in New York, even Nevada is tax exempt for Bitcoin. This in America, I think it's come as far as it needed to be able to be like, if they did try to outlaw it at this point, they realized that the deficit they would be putting themselves in. They tried earlier on with this in the U.S. and what we saw was all the companies that started with United States LLCs went to Cayman Islands.
yeah, so exactly. So I don't think it'll come to that. I hope it doesn't. I like to be able to wear my Bitcoin T-shirt in public. I don't want to be harassed over that. And so far, so good.
Yeah, I can't imagine wearing like a Bitcoin shirt and then worrying about like getting arrested for being a criminal, like yeah, but it is a potential, and it is like you mentioned in other countries where it is outlawed, but people still utilize it. It's just the good actors that are unfortunately not able to implement it, and businesses that can't. But this is where that paradigm opportunity really exists. Is like the underground garage projects actually have a chance because these the corporations have too much to lose if this doesn't stay legal. So you have these like really small industry or really small companies being built in an industry where the monopolies inside can't really adopt as much. It's too high of a risk. So it's a really good time to start playing around in the space and competing with these giants, and that's why I'm a big fan of like decentralized or any form of tokenized social media platforms, because Facebook is similar to the Blockbuster momentum, where Blockbuster was just too big to innovate. It wasn't that they were too big to fail, they were just too big to innovate. They actually planned for their obsolescence, and I believe Facebook is doing similar things with why they're looking into Libra and other situations where you may look at Facebook as a bank soon rather than a social platform.
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is it looks like Twitter gets it that they should be building on top of Bitcoin and not trying to, late to the party, build their own, version of it, which they can't because point is that it's not owned by a single company, right? And if you
Right.
just have some company creates their own thing, that's it's not a competitor. You know, if you look at, not just Blockbuster, right? If you look at like Kodak, right? Kodak had a digital camera before anybody else did. And they're like, oh, well, let's not promote this because that's, they'll cut into our money from film processing and film sales.
And then Nokia came out of the
Yeah.
woodwork.
So it's people said, like, you either disrupt yourself or somebody else disrupts you, right? So they chose not to do that, and then they're irrelevant in the digital camera space now.
Didn't they do an ICO?
There may have been something like that. I wasn't really paying attention.
I feel
to that.
like they did. Yeah. You said Kodak, and at first it came out, I was like, I feel like they did an ICO. Ugh, and there's still nothing coming out of them. Yeah. I feel bad for the Telegram guys too that invested in that. What was a $1 billion ICO or something that did nothing?
Yeah, it's kind of shocking just the amount of money in some of these ICOs. I can't believe it when it's really just they wrote an idea on a napkin basically.
Yeah, and then you look at projects like Binance, which like had the same fucking napkin startup, bro, and look at their success as opposed to a legacy industry like Kodak failing so hard.
What do you do with $1 billion? The Ethereum raise was 18 million. Mm-hmm. They built Ethereum with $18 million. How could you possibly use $1 billion?
This is why I hold EOS to a higher standard than a lot of people, I think, do, because of how much they've raised and how little they have developed with the amount of money they've had. I mean, dude, could you imagine if Bitcoin Core had $4 billion of fiat investment during the first, 2009? Come on, man. You think Bitcoin wouldn't be already like where it would be in 50 years from now if that were the case?
Yeah, you could hire 10,000 of the best programmers in the entire world to just work on it full time.
If you didn't want to just spend all that money your investors gave you on Lambos and bullshit, I mean.
Well, the Lambos are a very important part of development.
Yeah. EOS Lambos, that's what you got, guys, for $4 billion and a $27 million fucking fine. Like, what? Mm-hmm. That's nothing. They didn't even pay it. Their investors paid it for them. Anyway, man, that was so much fun, Daniel. I appreciate you coming on.
This hour flew by.
What events are you headed to next, man? It was good to hang out with you in Miami for Blockchain Week. Great to see you at the Blockchain Center. Shout out to those guys. Again, shout out to Jeremy Gardner for opening up his house to us. That was a hell of a lot of fun. Did you have a chance to go on the yacht in the back?
Oh, yeah. It was a very nice yacht.
I went inside the yacht.
Now.
I went inside of it, and somebody was getting dressed, and I saw somebody's bare ass putting on underwear, dude. I was just like, wow, they really just opened this whole place up to all of us. Like, we can all just, we all feel like this is home. First. Yeah, that's what I mean. I was just like, I didn't realize this was all of our homes now. But it was just an amazing time. So, where can I expect to see you at another conference?
Well, I'm gonna be in New York for a little while because again, I'm doing these intro to Bitcoin blockchain trading courses here, and I'm definitely gonna be at the New York conferences, in a few months. I'm not sure what else I'm gonna, I'm always looking at other stuff and try to see if I can get out to it if I can.
I'd like to see you on the 20th in New York. I'll be up there in a couple days on the 20th for the non-fungible token conference, NFT NYC. Last year was a lot of fun. This year I'm expecting to be twice. I mean, I looked at the speaker lineup, dude, and it's good. I actually am looking a lot forward to talking to the lawyers in the room. They have a couple lawyers coming in to talk about like non-fungible tokens and the laws around it, and I want to talk to the lawyers about these non-fungible tokens being utilized as security tokens and not getting the same repercussions as a security when it fails. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here's your NFT. We don't have a game for it yet, but once we sell all these NFTs, we'll build the platform. Then you can utilize the security token, which is actually a utility token. I don't know. So I'm really looking forward to that because I think a lot of projects that did these NFT ICOs that left me with, these non-fungible security tokens with no platform to use. I want to see if there's anything I can do about this. Like, at this point, I just feel like I got scammed by, X, Y, and Z, and there's no repercussions because NFTs don't have the same, responsibility as an STO, even though it's the same exact thing.
Okay. Yeah, no, maybe I'll check that out at the conference.
Yeah, dude, it'd be cool to see you there. Hey, shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks. Hey, Astros World, much appreciate you, bro. Thank you, 922. Silent Lamb in the chat. How goes it? Bitcoin Jake, much love, everybody. I see you guys. Royal Gentleman, what's up, bro? What's up? Future Socks. I don't know what that means, but I'm with it. I love future stocks. Okay, cool. All right, guys, check out Daniel, Ameli, and you're on Medium, right? Are you on Steam it yet?
Yeah, I'm writing on Medium, and I'm also posting on Twitter as well.
Sure. Let me get some more information so I can help you with that.
Okay. All right, phone. Bye. That was Google just eavesdropped on us. All right, man. Well, check out his Medium account, guys, and appreciate everybody tuning in. Daniel, again, much appreciated, bro. Thank you.
Thanks. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. As always, drop some comments in the comment section below. Let me know what common misconceptions we didn't cover that you think we should have, and divulge that in the comment section below. All right, guys. As always, have a day. We're out. Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like SoMe.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices. bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees. Better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io.